So, welcome to Relationship University. I'm Melody Bacon, licensed clinical psychologist and professor of psychology.
And I'm Ron Bacon. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and co-creator of the Family Matters program with my my wife, my well-to-do wife.
Well, we often in our private practices are encountering topics that seem to recur.
Mm,
Maybe we're noticing it more, or maybe it's just coming up more with our clients. But one that is a consistent one is about anxiety. And I'm not talking about anxiety that is normally the way it's used, like an anxiety disorder, panic, anxiety attack. I mean the chronic level that some families, everyone lives with some, but some families live with heightened anxiety. I always say it's like they're in a war zone
mm,
and always looking for the next hand grenade that's lobbed over their head, metaphorically speaking. And how do you navigate when that happens to be the family system that you are in, whether it's your own marital unit or the larger family system that you grew up with a lot of anxiety? And how do you figure out how you're going to respond rather than knee-jerk reaction? There's two knee-jerk reactions. One is to have a big fight and get
mm.
anxious and stop being whatever you are. The other one is to exit stage left, and you get a lot of leaving, distancing, cutting off, not talking to each other. Those are the two extremes. Most people are in between that somewhere. But how do you decide, instead of letting your own, what we call reactivity, boom, run your life, you let your thinking part of your brain run your life? And that is what we'd like to talk about today. How to let your thoughtful intention move you in the direction that's going to work best for you, even when everyone around you is running around metaphorically with their hair on fire.
Exactly. And it's easier said than done
Mm-hmm.
because anxiety is contagious.
It
And
is.
you can pick it up just so quickly, almost before you know that you did. Your body may know that you did, in that your heart rate goes up and your breathing gets shallow and faster.
Mm-hmm.
That you can be doing this. I mean, our bodies are very efficient, and
Yes.
so
Uh-huh.
there's threat, real threat, and then there's perceived threat,
Right.
and
Potential threat.
your body doesn't know the difference.
Nope.
When the brain signals threat, it signals threat. So it's up to us as humans. We get to decide if a threat is real or
That's
perceived.
right.
That's why I don't know of any other creature that likes going to horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Likes being scared.
we like perceived
Or
threat when we
going
know
on
it's
a
perceived.
going on a roller
Apparently.
coaster.
Yes.
Straight down, screaming all the way.
Yeah. That's there's the illusion of threat without real, and so it does change our physiology for that moment, and that's exciting, fun.
Yes.
Uh, that when it's going on in your house and there's no roller coaster and there's no resolve at the end of the movie, but day after day, over and over again, and it's like, what are we so uptight about?
Yeah.
Becomes starts becoming a decent question. What makes us so uptight? If you ever can go, if you've ever been invited to somebody else's house or a different culture, even, and it feels different,
Mm-hmm.
and you're saying, "Wow, how do they do this?"
Well, often your reaction will be to get the other one to stop being anxious. Knock it off. You're making things worse. Because you're feeling
Mm-hmm.
anxious, and you want them to stop so you can feel better. That is a terrible strategy. It's the most common one.
Mm-hmm. And it's a real horrible one for Americans because we don't like being told what to do. So somebody starts telling you, "Would you calm down?" And it's like, "Hey, would you get off my
Well,
back?"
there's a great meme on the internet with a man standing in front of a rocking washing machine. So here it is, clothes are washing, but it's rocking. And then he has a brick. It says, "Just calm down." He throws it into the rocking washing machine, and now it's really flipping out. So calm down is the brick you're throwing into the washing machine of somebody who's already unstable. Not useful. The best response is for you to calm yourself down, to think clearly, and that might mean taking a little bit of time to evaluate what your options are and to even know what they are, which is often difficult. And if you don't know what to do, I always tell my clients, don't do anything, because your brain isn't available for you right now. Go outside, don't slam the door on the person and say, I'm out of here, you're nuts. These things do not help either. But just to give yourself a break until you can think more clearly about how you'd like to respond to the person in your life who is anxious about something. And that can look like they're irritable, they're frustrated. Anxiety can show up in different ways.
It's you reminded me of Peter Senge had written years ago about two different kinds of systems. A washing machine it's a closed system that there's all the circuitry, all the parts.
Yeah.
You can lay them out there and you can put it together and know that it's not designed to have that kind of vibration.
Right.
So when you see that going on, there's an imbalance of some kind. And then, the engineering types should figure out why it's doing that and then repair it. That's, he also talked, though, about dynamic complexity. And dynamic complexity is something that has various parts, but the parts themselves are changing. And the thing that you're working on is changing, and you're changing. And so all these things are dynamic together. It can look very chaotic, and yet you can start having accurate predictions on what's going to take place, even with dynamic systems. And so it takes a little bit more, but knowing that, wow, I'm part of this without being the cause, and knowing that this likely represents an imbalance, whatever it is I'm observing, and how do I go about not unbalancing it further, throwing in the brick?
Yeah, and that means that you become aware of your part in the situation and what you usually do, and then deciding not to do that anymore. At least you can make that decision. That hasn't worked, so why would I say for the 100th time, stop doing whatever you're doing? It hasn't worked before, so I'll take that off the table. What else can I do?
If I can, because if it's my mother who used that line, and her mother used that line, or my grandfather, somebody like that, it's in my head deep, and it'll come out when I said I'm not going to say that anymore, and then I say it. It's like, whoa. But one is just having the awareness that an awareness even after the fact is more than I had before. Yes. And now I'm getting closer to not doing it.
So what are some alternatives? So an example would be, often with marital couples, one of the spouses is anxious about something, and maybe they don't even know. Okay, it's not anything that you can point your finger to. And so they're activated, they're afraid that, they're going to lose their job, and they don't know for sure how long the money will come in, and so they've been thinking about this for a long time. You as the spouse are not really quite aware of that part, and you come in and, hey, look at what was on sale today at the supermarket. If you buy 6 bottles of this wine, it's cheaper, and they start freaking out, and you're kind of like, what in the world? And your response is, I just bought some wine, what's your problem?
I can't believe you spent all that money. Rather than getting excited, they get anxious. They
so when you're confused because you're not getting the reaction you thought, you thought your loved one would be excited like you are.
Hey, let's pop a bottle.
Right. It's their favorite wine, whatever.
Yeah.
When you're confused, that's a good signal that a question needs to be asked. Okay, now, as Ron alluded, that may not be possible for you. You're so taken aback, your brain goes offline. Okay, put the wine down or whatever. Go take a break, but remind yourself, okay, I didn't expect that. So once I'm calmer, can I go back to my partner and say, wow, okay, what was going on for you when I brought that wine in? Well, you should have known where blah, 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 blah. Okay, so help me out here.
Do you want me to return it?
Well, that might be one
Yeah.
response. Another one might be, okay, so you're saying I should have known that you're anxious about our finances. I wasn't quite aware of that. Why don't you tell me what you're afraid of? Rather than stop being afraid. You know you always do this. Okay, you go down that road again. Don't go down the same roads. Doing the same thing over and over again is Freud's definition of, somebody who's psychotic. So we can all be there, by the way.
Yes.
But to say, well, what is it you need me to know? It's not a blank check. You're not saying whatever you say I'm going to do. Okay, understanding does not equal agreement. And so you say to your partner, what are you looking at that I'm not seeing? Well, my boss said the other day, he's not sure how long he can keep us all here, and now I'm really worried. Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Well, what would be helpful to you? Well, let's just stop spending money. Okay, that's one option. Let's come up with some other ones. Okay, and make it into a planning meeting rather than a combat of who's right or wrong, which is what people devolve to very quickly.
Yeah. How long do you think we could go without spending any money at all in this culture?
And,
because you can go a little while.
Yes, and, let's look at what we've got. That is such a rare response. Most people will say, are you nuts? Okay, so what's the big deal? You lose your job. I'm working. In other words, it's a total denigration of the other person's experience. Basically, you're nuts. I'm totally disregarding everything you said. Okay, and then they wonder why their marriage isn't working. Okay, so pretend like you're not married. Pretend like this is your co-worker, because normally we work better with people because we're not related to them. And if somebody's freaking out, we're much less likely to say, geez, what is your problem? We might think it, but we don't say it. We usually say, okay, well, how are we going to get this accomplished? Let's have a meeting. 99% of the time. Yes, there's always that time when you're working with someone that has some other issues, but our family, we rarely respond that way.
Yeah, it all happens much quicker. So with the bringing home, having the excitement, look at what I got, and you get blah. Ouch is not a bad response when you get hurt, but not escalating it. Oh, what's wrong with you or any of that? It's like, this ouch is simple. It's hard sometimes to say it because we think it's undeserved. And we want to get off, quit hurting me.
Right. Yeah, to say, well, that's, wow, that was a harsh response. I'm upset. I didn't know if I was going to lose my job. Okay, I get you're upset. Yeah. I would appreciate, though, if you are, just let me know so we can talk about it, because I didn't know all this was going on with you. That's a useful conversation. Yeah. But the usual response is, that's where anxiety goes. They're anxious. They're upset. You get just as anxious, more upset, and then pretty soon you're yelling at each other. You're not accomplishing anything. You walk away like the walking wounded, nursing your wounds for a day or two, and then nothing gets resolved because you just aren't fighting anymore. And you don't want to bring up the topic again because you don't want to go back into that nastiness.
Round two.
So the idea is to say, if I can get curious about my partner, I'm not understanding their response, not in a condescending way like what the heck's wrong with you, but really help me out here. If I can do that, my brain's online. If I can't, and I'm just plain mad and I don't want to know what's going on with them, then I won't ask a question, because you have a right to your experience. Your body is already telling you, don't go there. Okay, you're too activated, and I'm not going to be able to be curious. Let me settle myself down, not think about my upset, and keep rehearsing. Do something differently, and then maybe tomorrow come back and say, can we talk about what happened yesterday? And maybe you need to set a time limit that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the curiosity factor to me is the key to knowing if your brain is online, because most people will respond. A famous psychologist, Alfred Adler, said the crying baby runs the family. And what he meant was, as soon as the baby cries, we all run and want to soothe the baby. It's a natural reaction. It's a good reaction to babies. The thing is, when people grow up and they are very anxious, the person with the phobia will run the family. The person with autism, they get anxious about things. So everyone's always running around this person's anxiety, trying to keep them from being anxious. And it's not that person's fault.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that what you want to do is instead of that running the family, let me see if I can hold on to my brain and connect with them in a different way than what I normally do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one way of managing a very big issue, but it'll help you get a lot more clarity.
I know. I'll watch the Bacons in a YouTube video.
There you go. All right. Well, that's one more step in the journey of life together and in relationship. And check out our other videos on our channel. Stay connected and connect with us through our Family Matters program for families struggling with substance use disorders. And we'll see you next time.
Very good.